welcome to the 13 books I read in May. I started off the month by reading the Tawny Man trilogy. Fitz and The Fool are my favourite duo in media ever. I love them so much. This was incredible. This was outstanding. I rated the first book 4.75, the second book 4.5, and the last book 5 stars. This book, I don't think I've ever cried this much in my life. I had a mental breakdown reading this. Actually, the emotions this trilogy took me on, the ride it took me on, it was incredible. This trilogy fixed a lot of the mistakes Fitz made in the first trilogy, and I loved it. I loved it so much. The Red Winter was my May book club book. I ended up rating this 4 stars. I always love a good fantasy, especially when the main character has a demon inside his head and he has lived for centuries. That just makes it amazing. It has a lot of classical mythology in it as well. A lot of commentary on the church, but it mainly centers around the Beast of Gévaudan. I love this so much, and I hope we get more stories about this main character in the future. Then I read the first prequel for the Maze Runner series. While you did sort of know what was going to happen just from the blurb, as well as everything you got from the Maze Runner, this was still so fast-paced, so action-packed. I rated this a 4.25 stars. The ending was incredible. I'm very excited to read the 5th and final book and the second prequel. Then I had a bit of a dark romance reading session. I started by starting the Park Avenue Princes series. I read the first 2 books, Infamous and Insatiable. I rated Infamous 4.25 and Insatiable 3.5. They're just fun college romances so far. I love that each book has a different trope, and I'm very excited to continue. Then I continued the Vitale Brothers series by reading books 4 and 5. Never Say Never, which I read 4.5 stars, and End It All, which I rated 4.25. Never Say Never had me so emotionally invested, and I loved how crazy the Vitale brother in that one was. I can't remember his name though, but I loved him, and I loved the girls, and I loved the FBI guy as well. End It All, I love the Vitale brother in that so much. He is a pyromaniac, and I love that for him so much, and I love how he joins the Vitale brothers, how he gets to know his brothers. That was incredible. That was insane. And now I just need to finish it with the dad's book. I feel like I'm going to be putting that off for a while. Then I read my second 5-star read for the month, The Poet Empress. Not gonna lie, wasn't the biggest fan of the middle of this, but I ended up just loving the writing, loving the ending, loving the backstory we got. So this is about Wei Ying. She is a peasant girl who becomes the cruel emperor's concubine, and in order to kill her husband, she writes a love poem, and when that's finished, she can kill him. But in order to write this poem, she must know everything about him, and she must love him, or at least convince the gods that she loves him. So throughout this book, you learn the cruel emperor's backstory, and that was so amazing, so beautiful. I think the cruel emperor, besides Wei Ying, was my favorite character. Absolutely insane, beautiful. Then I had a really atmospheric read, a very autumny read, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I love that title so much. There was a twist at like page 100-ish, and I did not see that coming at all. Completely changed this book and what I thought about it, and I loved it. I loved that change so much. This follows 3 separate girls: Sabine from the 1500s, Charlotte from the 1800s, and Alice from modern day. And I love Sabine. Sabine was definitely my favorite character, but I also loved Charlotte's 1800s Bridgerton era, because Charlotte is a member of the Ton, and that was incredible. That was probably my favorite era, but my favorite character was definitely Sabine. I loved her, and I loved her strength, and I loved her story. Well, maybe not all of her story, but I did love her story. Then I finally started Mistborn Era 2. These have been so fast-paced, so addictive. I read both of these. Well, I read them in 2 days. Well, 1 day each, but like 2 days all together. The Alloy of Law was a fun reintroduction. It was very classical sort of detectives book, And so was this, but this was more fun and this was more classical, in my opinion, Brandon Sanderson, with more of a serious tone and also more of a mystery with a plot twist that actually changed a lot of things. Well, not like world-wise, but like character-wise, and it was so impactful. I rated The Aloe of Law 4.5 stars and Shadows of Self also 4.5 stars. So those were all the books I read in May, and I'll see you next month.